Do I have to press anything?
Just hold it up to your mouth.
Okay. I'm Dolores Marquez, and I have several areas where different places that we paint together. Diana was talking about painting on your own, and painting with other people also is very good and encourages you to paint, and it also maybe has different eyes to see what you're doing, and maybe you're having problems or something. But here at Crossroads, we paint on Tuesdays from 10 to 2. It's free, and you just come in and bring your things, and you can paint whatever you want to. There's other areas too that other locations that we also paint at Redmond Senior Center on Thursdays. So if you're inclined, and South Bellevue Community Center on Tuesdays from 1 to 3. So if you're inclined to paint with other people, you live close to the areas that Redmond or Crossroads or South Bellevue, come and paint and enjoy yourself.
Thank you. Before Chen introduces Aaron, I just wanted to ask if we wanted to recognize any new members. I know Gail's our membership chair, and she asked if we had new members that wanted to introduce themselves. If you don't, that's fine. Go ahead. You know, go ahead. Yell. Wonderful, thank you. All right. Are there any more announcements from the board? I think we're okay. All right. Chin, do you want to introduce Aaron?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, finally, I'm able to talk about something about the art. Usually a failure of a painting is not due to color. It's also usually not due to texture. And most likely, it's due to the core fundamental of drawing. So today's speaker is a master drawing. Aaron Hart, he's an award-winning artist and also has served as a core instructor in Gage Academy for many, many years in portraiture and figures. And, so it's our pleasure today to have Aaron come over to do a live portrait demo in drawing. And not only he's going to show us that, he's also going to give us instruction on how important to lay a foundation to start with, which will lead to more successful end product. So without further ado, another thing is, forgot to mention. So here are some of the example works Aaron has, and also interested parties can go to the Gage website to admire Aaron's expert draftsmanship in portraiture, figure, and classic oil painting. So without further ado, Aaron, the floor is yours.
So can you hear me? Okay, good. I didn't know if this thing was working or not. So good afternoon, everybody. Like Shin was saying, I am an instructor at the Gage Academy. I've been there for about 12, 14 years. I lose count of time, but primarily portraiture, drawing, painting, figure, drawing, painting. I've done still life, but it's not one of my favorite things to do just because it's such a pain to set up, but you know, kind of, dabble in all of that kind of stuff. So today, what I'm hoping to do is to get through what's referred to as the block-in of the portraiture, okay? So basically starting from the beginning and working through my process. They say that there's many ways to paint as are painters. Well, it's the same with draftsmen. So, this is just one approach, and it happens to be my approach, which I find the most usable. Some people approach it differently, and if that works for them, that's great. So hopefully this makes sense to you and why I approach it. So If you have any questions, feel free to ask during the demo. The way this is going to work today is that we're going to do a 20-minute session, then give the model a 5-minute break, and then we'll go to another 20-minute session, 5-minute break, and then a final 20-minute session. So it's going to run a little bit over an hour. I hope that's okay. And then hopefully I'll have something presentable when it's done. It won't look anything like these though. So, these are probably, not including the painting, you're probably looking about 16 to 20 hours of work. So it does take a while to do this stuff, to get to this type of resolution and refinement and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm.
We cannot see her on the screen.
Okay, so is that something that you would like to do? So let's see, I can turn this a little bit more. Does that work for you guys? Okay. Okay. Can I slip this up? I just don't want to run into it like this. Okay, good. So,
Take this thing out.
okay, either way, I just didn't, so one of the things I stress when I'm teaching, one of the things I stress a lot is to back up from your work. It's really, really critical. So this reason I'm worried about that. I back up without even thinking about it. It's second nature anymore. And so I just didn't want to run into the camera and have everything go over. So, okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'm working in charcoal today. Just one of my favorite mediums. One of the drawings over there, the one on the left is graphite, and then the one on the far side over there is charcoal and white chalk on tone paper. Okay. So I'm going to adjust the model a little bit. How's it feeling? You okay? You comfortable? Okay, good. Okay. So I'm going to adjust the light just a little bit. There you go. And yeah, so get comfy. Let's see. Why don't you sit up real quick? I just want to do something. Oh no, come off the table. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to turn you slightly like that. Okay. And then you're going to look back towards me. There you go. Perfect. Uh-oh.
Okay. Let's turn on sound. Oh, that's so weak.
Oh, that's okay. Okay, you ready?
We know
Oh yeah, go ahead and start. So, okay. Okay, so I've lit her so that it's what we refer to as chiaroscuro. So I'm looking for those shadow shapes, really, really important. It's really difficult to draw a model with just ambient light. There's nothing to grab onto, okay? And so I want to have those shadows so that I can work from them, okay? So these initial marks that I'm going to be making are basically just me positioning the figure on the paper, or the portrait on the paper, okay? I'm not trying to gather any detailed information. All I'm doing is setting the head on the paper where I want it, the size of the head, okay? And now I'm going to go ahead and find what I refer to as the crosshairs, okay? The crosshairs are basically how does I don't know if you guys can see that. I'll try to draw a little bit darker so you can actually see what I'm doing here. Okay. So just kind of an ovoid shape to represent the head. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and try to find the center line here. This is the mark running through the center of the face, through the glabella, philtrum, and the chin or mental protuberance. That's going to give me a sense of how the model is this way, looking up, how it's tilted, that type of a thing. Okay. So I'm looking for that. The other line I'm going to be looking for is basically the eyes. And I'm sure everybody in here knows that the eyes are halfway in the head, okay? So from the top of the head to the chin, they're going to be halfway. And so I'm going to go ahead and set that. And I usually like to kind of draw an ovoid like that. It gives me a sense of the volume of the head right away, okay? And so that's what I'm looking for. So your North Star in this particular drawing is going to be right there, basically right between the eyes and the center line through the glabella and philtrum and stuff like that. This is the only place I know where it's at, okay, because I placed it on the paper. I don't know where the ears are at, I don't know where the chin is at, I don't know where any of that stuff's at right now, okay? But if I know where this point's at here, I can start to set the shadow shapes that I'm seeing on the model, okay? And so that's what I'm going to start to do. And notice that I'm not on top of my drawing. That's one of the things that a lot of our beginning students will do, is they're just kind of like climbing on top of their drawing without actually standing back to be able to see what is going on with the drawing and the model at the same time. Oops, I need to grab a couple things. One of your best tools is just a wooden skewer, from barbecuing. I'm going to be able to check angles with that as soon as I get a few more lines on here. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay, so one of the things I stress whenever I'm teaching a portrait class is that you're...
Ariel, is it okay I adjust
Sure.
your mic a little bit so people perhaps have a better, I don't know how, that thing.
Technical difficulties.
Yes, always there.
Okay. Is that better? Okay. So to backtrack a little bit, whenever I'm teaching a portrait, or figure for that matter, I'm trying to get the students to think about shapes, okay? We're not drawing an eye, we're not drawing a pair of lips, we're not drawing a nose, we're drawing shapes. And so being able to kind of divorce yourself from the fact that you're drawing shapes is a better way to approach it. Because otherwise we start to kind of go into the left side of our brain, and the left side of our brain, tells us what we should be drawing instead of actually turning that side off and looking and just looking and drawing the shapes that you see. The other thing that's really, really important is to unify, to simplify your shapes, okay? I'm not trying to get irises, I'm not trying to get nostrils. Nostrils are a big one. People draw those all the time. I'm simplifying the shapes and trying to capture the larger masses. One of the things I'm notorious for saying is general to specific. Another way to think about that is large to small. So I'm drawing the larger shapes, taking the smaller shapes and unifying them into single masses and trying to get as accurate as possible. All based on that North Star, that crosshair that I was referring to. Notice I haven't tried to set the nose or anything like that yet. I don't know where it's at quite yet. And so I'm going to continue to build out the shapes that I see and work my way down slowly, okay? So I'm kind of like taking little steps moving down the portrait, okay? From the eyes, which I know where those are at, and then making little incremental steps for the shadow along the side plane of the nose, coming down to the nasal furrow, and grabbing that. Each time just making slow incremental steps. Trying to capture the shapes in relationship to one another.
That doesn't seem to help when the light says it. You have to get in the camera closer.
Yeah, I mean that's.
But then you may not see her too much. But is it more critical to see her than the work?
Probably. I'll let you guys work that out. Still doing okay?
You adjust it so they want to see the model. And I'll do this way. I don't know whether.
There we go. So, yeah.
All right. Okay, let's go back.
It has to be on the, I'm sorry, can it be over here? So it just lights the pad? I'm sorry. Is that better?
I'll try to go to storage to get another lens. Because, yeah, it was just so dim.
So where was I? So basically drawing shapes. So I'm coming back in and correcting as I move. I'm slowly starting to move down towards the nose. What I'm doing, it might be a little bit difficult to see, but basically I've set the eyes here in a general shape, okay? Then I'm walking my way down here. I'm not jumping down to the bottom of the nose because I have no idea where it's at yet, okay? What I'm doing is I'm visually measuring down, you know, like how big is this space here? How big is this space here? And this is basically the beginning of the nasal furrow. So I'm gonna find that. Then I'll cross over and get the nose and start to establish a shadow shape on this side. We've got some really beautiful shadows on here, so we're gonna get a nice side plane and that type of thing. Give a little bit more mass as opposed to like a ambient lit model where there's nothing to hang on to. You've got a couple of like, you know, darks for maybe the eyes, maybe the bottom plane and the nose, and that's about it. Here we've got some beautiful shadows on the model. So, okay, back to the drawing. So, and I don't know if anybody's noticed or not, but I'm drawing with straight lines. Another good habit to get into, because a straight line is so much easier to correct than a curved line. Because if I find that I'm off a little bit, I just have to take and move that straight line up or down, left or right, as opposed to reestablishing the curve. And so when I can do that really rapidly, then it just makes the drawing more efficient. And again, I haven't even started to set the contours yet, okay? Just because I need to get my masses inside established first in relationship to one another. That's the tricky part. They have to be in relationship to one another. And then standing back, you know, again, comparing the model to the drawing. And again, I'm visually doing, I'm checking my shapes, squinting a lot. You guys can't see that, but that's what's happening. Okay, here's the nostril here. Hopefully they'll get these.
Oh, it was too bright.
You can adjust that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, good, yes.
Oh, no problem. I warned you. You guys will have this figured out next time.
Is that in your way?
No, not at all. No, no, that gives a hot spot on the drawing. Yeah. Yeah, that blows it out too, so.
Okay.
Yeah. It's almost better without the light on it, at least
It's just hard to
right
see back
now.
there,
Yeah, I can imagine.
But not for them.
I mean, I'm fine with it, you
You're
know.
fine with it.
Yeah, where it's at, so. You're doing really well for the first time. Okay, so now I'm starting to look at the contour of the contour of her face in relationship to where the corner of the mouth is, okay? Also where the end of the eye comes to the edge of the contour. So I can start to get that established. Haven't established anything to do with the hair yet. Might start setting a bang there. And we are going to be taking a break here shortly, so you guys can come up and take a quick look, you know, so you can get a better view of what's going on as we give our model a little breather. So I can't see you raise your hands or anything, but if anybody has any questions, you know, feel free to shout them out. should have shot for a little bit more Rembrandt lighting. I'll grab that little triangle there. Okay. I'm just kind of muttering to myself, I should have grabbed a little bit more Rembrandt lighting if anybody's familiar with that term. Okay, so I'm slowly working my way down to the chin. And again, like I'm moving step by step by step by step because I'm not confident enough to just arbitrarily set a distance. I find that when people set a distance, when they come down and they say, okay, here's the bottom of the chin, they force everything to go down to that chin. They don't want to move this line for some reason, you know, when you really should be moving it up. They'll set the chin here. They'll make the nose longer. They'll make the lips longer or further down on the chin. So don't set those marks, you know, find them, okay? Because otherwise you'll just try to shove it in there like a square peg in a round hole, okay? And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm slowly working my way down. Again, squinting the whole time, you know, unifying shadow shapes. And then standing back, because I can judge proportions better from back here than I can when I'm up on top of the drawing. Now that's not to say that as the drawing would progress that I wouldn't choke up on it and I would start to get a lot more, you know, a little bit closer, you know, drag out my maul stick and start to turn form, that type of thing. But right now we're not there yet. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay. One thing to keep in mind that I'm always stressing to my students is that I know with new students, they're always you know, fixated on getting everything perfect, getting the perfect size, the perfect distance, the perfect length, whatnot. And I try to stress that if it looks right, it is right, okay? So if it looks correct, even though it might be off a millimeter or two here or there, no big deal. Once the model's gone, nobody's gonna know any difference. Do you know if any of these women look like that? You don't know. So it looks right, it is right, so, okay? So that's what we're kind of striving for. And so in the beginning, you know, as you're learning this, you know, we have to sell the classes at Gage as portrait classes. I'd rather call them head studies, you know, because until you get better with your drawing skills, you're really just doing head studies over and over and over again. I couldn't tell you how many, you know, head studies I've drawn, you know, over the years, trying to get a likeness that, you know, slowly emerges as you do more. You know, I've thrown away hundreds of drawings and paintings for that matter. And it's a process, so you just have to continue trusting the process. And again, notice I'm drawing in straight lines. I'm not trying to get the curves that, you know, the hair is creating. I'm not even doing a lot of erasing, if anybody's noticed that. It's like, why isn't he erasing all those marks? Is because, you know, I'm not going to go over them with a wash of tone anyway, so there's no point in me, you know, destroying the paper with a lot of erasing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set the forehead, trying to take in consideration the planes of the face. The frontal eminence right through here, and then we start to transition to the temporal side of the head, and then we go back towards the ear. So the forehead is not a round object like a sphere or a ball. It actually has planes. Females, their planes are much subtler and harder to detect. On a male, they're a little bit easier, they're a little bit harder, a little bit more substantial. How much time do we have?
2.5
Minutes? Okay, cool.
Yeah, 2.5 minutes. Oh, sorry, it's not seconds. I'm not counting.
Okay. So just adjusting shapes now. I'm never set a shape and walk away from them. I'm always adjusting them just to make sure that things are where they should be. And then once I'm confident with that, then I can come back in and put in, the wash of tone, and I'll show that. Looks like I'll have plenty of time to do a wash of tone, so that should be no problem. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of start to search for this side of the face. I haven't done anything over here yet. And again, doing the same thing as I did with the features, I'm kind of walking my way down. Well, I'm going to walk my way across. And so what I'm going to be looking for, although I'm not going to differentiate it by much, I'm going to go ahead and start to set the hair at the temple, okay? So that's going to give me this space right here that I can say, how does that distance look? I'm not going to jump from this light on her eyelid all the way back. I just don't have the confidence that I can get that right. But this is much easier to judge because I can look for her eyebrow and start to set that and say, okay, it's coming up here, it's a little bit darker, and it's going down there. I know you probably can't see that, and it's really difficult to see up here also because I'm just making myself little notations so that I can actually come in and set that edge of her hair. And then I'm going to just check the angle. Stand back and check that angle real quick. And then I'm going to go ahead and just set the side of the her face. Okay. Again, I'm not going to like overthink it because it's all in the shadow. That entire side of her face is in shadow, and so I just need that so that I can actually start to come back in. Here's her ear in shadow, but I'm just going to set a little bit of a line there because that's going to get me closer to the back of her hair. Okay, and so then.
The first 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. So let's take a 5-minute break real quick. Do you remember where you're looking and all that kind of stuff? Okay, cool. Okay. So we'll take a quick 5-minute break, and if you guys want to turn the lights on, you guys can come up and take a closer look. I know you can't see much from back there, but that way our model can, stretch and,
I'm taking a chance to adjust the power because I need some power extension.
Oh, sure.
Go there.
Okay. Any questions? Oh, come on, I'm not that good. So, okay. Is everybody familiar with a skewer and the use of them? Okay. This is basically just the skewer that you do a kebab on, okay? I like them because they're thin and long. Some people will just use a pencil, and that's fine too in a pinch, using it to check, things like this. This is a little bit longer and thinner, so it's a little bit easier and gives me more information, if you will. But basically, it's used for finding drop lines, okay? So if I'm measuring like the side of her eye, how does that relate to the side of her mouth down here, okay? So I look down, and if they line up next to one another, then it has to line up on my drawing. There's no other, it has to do that, okay? And so you use this to check all the way across your drawing to make sure things are lining up, vertically, okay? And then cross comparisons would be horizontally, and you hold this as parallel to the floor as possible, and you check to make sure like the eyes are lined up properly, the top of the ear is lined up with maybe the brow ridge, that type of a thing, the bottom of the nose lining up maybe with the lobe of the ear. And if it's not lining up on your drawing, but it's lining up on the model, you've got a problem. You have to move your drawing. You can't move the model, okay? And so that's the thing about using this skewer. And then checking angles, like, checking the angle of the neck. If she's got a nice, a graceful turn in the neck, you can check the angle there. Checking the angle of the jawline, checking how the hair, what direction it's going. So you just use that and you hold it. Now, whenever you're using this to do that with, make sure your arm is always extended and locked out. Okay, if you measure here and you measure here, you're going to get 2 different measurements. Okay, so you always want to make sure that the arm is locked out. You'd be surprised how many students I have to come over and like slash their elbow just so that they'll, get their arm extended out. Okay, because it's really important to get that established. That you always have that same thing. That's always consistent distance. Okay, so that's what I'm doing with the skewer. Really, really important.
Try to test it.
Okay. Feel free to come up and take a quick look if you want. Again, it's still in the early stages, and it's just basically just the shadow shapes that I'm shooting for.
So how are you sharpening your charcoal?
I take a snap knife, okay,
Oh,
and I trim these down.
okay. I noticed it was really long.
Yeah, so this one hasn't been sharpened if you guys want to see how I do it real quick since we have a couple minutes. Find yourself a garbage can preferably. I'm going to do it right here. So taking a snap knife because I like the length of the blade, okay? I don't want like an X-Acto knife that only gives me this much. I like it a little bit longer, okay? And I'm going to come here, I'm going to back up here, I'm going to whittle. You know, think like on the back porch in your rocking chair just whittling, okay? And so as I'm cutting, I'm not just pushing, I'm actually slicing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so that's the thing about I've had students in class just try to muscle their way through just pushing down. Use the blade to actually just slice the charcoal away. Now the reason I do this, some people like poo-poo it and stuff like that, but I like to be able to see where the tip of my pencil is. Okay. I don't want to have to look around the wood that's all the way down there, especially if the pencil's not very sharp, okay? And so I can continue to, just kind of like just gently, cut down and get down to the charcoal. Once I've got that down there, don't try to cut all of the wood that will be adhered to the charcoal, okay? I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's like wood still adhered to the charcoal. Well, that's just the process they make it with. It's the glue, it's holding the wood on. It's glue, okay?
So that would break the charcoal.
Well, if you try to cut it off with your knife, it will, okay? So what you do instead is after you've got this down, you can see they're about the same distance. I usually go for about 1/2 inch to 5/8, okay? Then I'll take a piece of sandpaper and then I'll go ahead and sand it to a nice point. And that will take care of any wood that's there, so I don't have to fight with that, okay? And I want to get a nice sharp point on it. And now this is going to do two things. When I get further into the drawing and I want to start to get into my subtle transitions and stuff like that, I have to have a very, very sharp, like needle sharp point, okay? If it starts to dull over, I'll have like 4 or 5 of these all sharpened up, and as soon as it starts to dull, I'll grab another one and continue working, because I don't want to waste my time sharpening with a model sitting on the stand, okay? Yeah, so you want to make sure you're prepared for, how long you're drawing. And so just sanding this down will get that wood out of the way, and you're less likely to break it.
Now, what softness is that charcoal?
I usually start, I did some experimenting before coming here. I thought I would try to go with a softer pencil, so it's a little bit easier to see, but really difficult to manipulate. So I work with an HB. HB. Well, in charcoal, you'd be surprised. HB graphite and HB charcoal are 2 different animals. Yeah, charcoal is much softer as a medium, and then graphite's much harder. And not my favorite, but because it's just, when I'm working with charcoal, I'll stump it. Everybody familiar with stumping? Okay. Yeah, basically, these are what paper stumps. Yeah. And the material I'm working on is a Strathmore 500, which has a laid finish. Okay. So the finish is going vertically and horizontally, creating a texture for the charcoal to grab onto. Okay. But as I'm drawing on the top of that laid. The stump will push it down into the crevices of the laid. Okay. It's an amazing thing. Once I do the wash of tone, and let's say I wash, I stump it a little bit, okay? It will darken. Yeah, because I'm pushing the charcoal down into the crevices of the laid, so less light is reflecting back out at me, darkening the value. So you have to be careful how dark you go with the wash of tone, okay?
Did you use a mechanical pencil with an HB?
Well, that's graphite. This is charcoal. Yeah, I use graphite a lot of times in galleries. If I'm sketching in galleries, because it's less messy, I don't have to do this. But time's up, Mr. Ming. Okay, so and so I do some stuff in graphite, but it's not my favorite. So in studios, sometimes in open studios I'll use a graphite, but for the most part I like my charcoal. So, yeah.
Do you ever do landscapes or still life?
Still lifes, yeah. I just sold a couple actually at Gage. So yeah, they're oil paintings. But yeah, still lifes. I'm not a big landscape person. I just can't improve upon nature. So, no matter how hard I try. So, but it's just still lifes and stuff you can always improve upon, or you can set them up. But it's hard to beat that. So, okay, yes.
I have a measurement question.
Mm-hmm.
Is like when you were talking about blocking in the nose
Uh-huh.
and getting the length of the
Uh-huh.
nose and how you step down
Right.
to get the length.
Uh-huh.
So I don't get how you measure the step. I mean,
Well, you do it visually. So after I've got this area set here, I look and I visually move my eye basically. You know who Rose Franzen is?
no, I don't.
She's a video out there, she talked one time, she said, think about like your eye following the trail of an ant. And so imagine that ant walking down, how far does your vision move, or how far would you move down before that ant reaches that next spot?
Okay.
And so I kind of, I don't generally think that, I'm just visually looking, does that feel right, or does it feel right here, or does it feel right here? And so it gets more acute over time, meaning it gets better with the more that you practice it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's all visual measuring. Yeah.
I have a hard time.
It's just practice. So, okay. You're doing really well.
We start.
Okay, so are we going to leave the overhead lights on? Oh, okay. I'm good either way, so, okay. Okay, so you started this again? Okay. Does it say 25 minutes?
I mean, there is a break, it's a bit longer, so I will just, yeah.
Okay.
So it's just finished.
Okay. Okay, so let's make sure she's back in position here. Good. You've done this before, haven't you? Okay. Okay, so let's get back to this. I can't remember what pencil I had. I think it was one with the extenders, so we'll grab that. My eraser. Okay. Okay, so since the break has kind of got me all discombobulated, so I'm kind of resetting myself here. Feels like her bangs have shifted a little bit, so I'm going to move those down a little bit. You're fine. So it's easier for me to change it than for you too. So I'm going to bring those bangs down just a little bit more. That way it's going to reduce that and give me a little bit more room for the top of the head. I don't know if anybody paid attention, but there's a lot of marks going on in this drawing, okay? And that's perfectly fine, because a lot of them are going to disappear as soon as I do the wash of tone. And I'll explain that. I don't know if anybody understands that term, but once I get there, it'll make more sense, okay? So, and generally, this is how I will begin pretty much all of my portrait drawings. I attack paintings a little bit differently, basically because of the medium. The medium kind of dictates that things have to be approached a little bit differently. For the oil painters out there, it's a little bit more problematic to have all of these marks all over your piece, and try to keep it in some type of organization. Okay. And the other thing that I do, I don't know if anybody's noticed that my marks are longer than, like the hair here, it curves. I'm just not stopping at where it changes directions. I'm shooting beyond it, for the fact that I might actually have to, move a line left or right, and that way then I'm not actually having to move a corner per se. So getting the reflected light, actually it's not even reflected light, it's the light hitting her neck here to describe the fullness of the neck. Then making a drop line, making sure that it's in relationship to where the eye's at. Can I get you to turn your head just a little bit that way? There you go. Okay. Okay, that's better. Yeah, there's a little bit of a shift on that side. That's better. Okay. I'm squinting. I'm looking at this shadow right now. It feels like it grew on me a little bit, so I'm going to bring that up a little bit. Remember our, not motto, but if it looks right, it is right. And so I'm not trying to grab every little thing on the model. When drawing from the model, it's kind of, I consider it like a dance, okay? As the model's moving one way, you've kind of got to keep up with her, okay? And so you just can't expect, we're not drawing a statue here. And so we have to be able to be flexible with the model. And so a lot of times in classes, like the figure drawing classes especially, if the model shifts a little bit, I just tell the student to shift a little bit. Instead of drawing from here, maybe he has to step over here to see the figure where it was in his drawing, and then he can move back and place it, okay? So if the model does shift a little bit, especially if you're in a classroom situation, you know, where I have full control over the model, that's a little different. But in a classroom situation, you kind of have to make concessions to what the model is doing or is going to do, so that you can control the situation. Okay, so let's come up and I want to finish off the back of the head here. It's a good way to get your exercise too, all the moving that you're doing. So I'm gonna bring the top of the head down just a little bit. So I'm gonna erase a couple of lines, but not too bad. So let's pull a little bit away up here. I'm just using a kneaded eraser for this. I have a harder, it's called a Tombow Zero. It's a really handy eraser to have, but I don't want to get too aggressive with my erasing yet. I want to make sure that, that I don't damage the paper any more than I have to. So I'm going to come back into this eye. Feels like it needs a little bit more clarification, especially with the iris. Again, trying to keep things simple. Just refining the shapes around the eyes a little bit more. I've started simple, now I'm starting to get a little bit more detail. I'm not getting into a lot of nuances, subtleties, but I am trying to capture the shadow shapes as accurately as I can. There's going to be some transitions that won't be there, but that's fine. It's the larger shapes that we're interested in. And so beginning again from the big shapes, which is just kind of setting where the eyes are going to be, now I'm starting to refine those and get them a little bit more accurate to what I'm seeing, getting the detail of the upper eyelid, going into the corner of the eye, start to set the iris, the pupil, not the pupil, the iris. The pupil's too small to deal with here. Setting the eyebrow again, looks like I need to move that just a little bit, not much though, just a hair, moving it up just a little bit. Again, because of the straight line, makes it easy just to shift that straight line up. got a little bit of a shadow there, so I'm gonna go ahead and set that. So now this light on the other side here. I don't know if it's a little bit better on the screen. If I stop talking, it's because I'm concentrating. This one shape feels a little bit off to me, feels a little bit big. So I'm trying to trace that down and figure out why.
So we have 10 more minutes to go.
Okay. Till the end or to the next break?
To the next break.
Okay.
You can make the last one shorter.
Okay. I think I need to move the corner of the eye out just a little bit more. Oh no, you're fine. It's me, not you. Need a little bit more side plane of the nose there, so just a smidgen. And need to drop that eye down a little bit. Actually, by quite a bit. Okay, that's better.
Can I ask a quick question?
Oh, definitely.
So I know the most difficult for portraiture is the likeness. So are you just keep on modifying all around, or you anchor certain part, then use that part as a reference to do that part?
Good question. So in portraiture, I'm usually adjusting the shapes until they feel like they're in the correct position. Always double checking. You know, haven't counted how many times I've used the skewer to check angles and stuff like that. Drop lines, cross comparisons. In figure work, that's a little bit different because a lot of times I've noticed in the figure work is that you'll have something come into focus before the rest of the figure, meaning that the chest area will kind of develop and get more resolved and more accurate, and then I start to work up from the chest using it as a guide for the rest of the piece. On portraiture, it's just so tight, the objects, the shapes are so tight that sometimes it's really difficult for one part to come together. It's more like it's all going to come together or it's not. So, and so that's the reason for, because I'm usually just kind of moving, tweaking until I can get the shapes where I need them to be. Hope that answered your question.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's a little bit dark. And I always like to try to keep my marks about the same value, just so that one part doesn't come, come forward before everything else. I want everything to kind of come up at once, if that makes any sense. If I start to emphasize one thing more than another, then all of a sudden that becomes kind of the focal point for me or for actually anybody. And so it's better to kind of like bring everything up simultaneously. That way then it feels more unified. She's got a little bit more light on her cheek this time, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to add a little bit more because that's going to give me a little bit more information on the shadow side, which is always nice because actually I can see her nasal furrow now. It's actually starting to catch a little bit more light. So I'm going to move that just a little bit. So I'm kind of, here's where I was referring to the dance. I've had to kind of adjust a little bit because there's been a little bit of shift, and that's fine. So, but at a certain point, you do have to call it, meaning that once this is kind of set, I'm feeling pretty good about where things are at the moment. Once this is set, I'm not going to be chasing anything anymore, okay? I'm going to be coming in with the wash of tone and basically setting the drawing, okay? Even though she may not get back into the same pose, I want to make sure that I set it and go because, she's always going to be shifting just a little bit. And so you have to make that determination of when to call it. Otherwise, you'll be, drawing the block in forever. And at some point, although, at some point we have to, pull the trigger, because was it Da Vinci that said that artwork is never finished, only abandoned? And so at some point, I'm going to have to abandon the drawing and just get into the turning of form and getting all that stuff established so that, otherwise it'll never finish. Okay. Okay, so that's looking good there. You moved your hair a little bit, but I'm going to leave it where it's at. Okay, that's looking good there. I'm going to move this back just a little bit here for the forehead. Yeah, I like that shadow a little bit better on the forehead now. It's a little bit more giving me a sense of the plane there. Before it was a little bit ambiguous. Pull that out. Okay. So here I'm just kind of double checking things. Being a linear drawing, basically it's just line work at the moment. There's no value in it. It makes it a little bit difficult to judge if I have things correct. So the next stage of the drawing, we're going to be doing what I refer to as the wash of tone. And that's where I can start to compare apples to apples, okay? I'm going to be putting in a value across all the shadows so that I can actually start to see the shapes on her in relationship to the drawing. And actually I can start to judge if I have a shape correct because it's now going to be a value and not just a line. I can actually look at it and say, okay, that's the right shape. And I always like, I think I might have mentioned this earlier, I always like to add a little bit of the shoulder or the upper chest, because I always dislike disembodied heads. They're always kind of freaky. And so giving a sense of the shoulders, the blouse or the V-line in the shirt is always a nice way to kind of ground the portrait. That's a little bit higher. I'm going to move the chin up real quick. How much time do I have?
Half a minute.
30 seconds. Okay, I'll see if I can move this really quickly. I just feel like the chin got a little bit long on me. So that's, again, it's not, you know, what am I trying to say? It's not a matter of divine intervention. It's you know, practice and being able to you know, be very brutal with your drawing and making these decisions even though you might not want to. I don't know how many times I've had students erase things they didn't want to because they think they'll never find them again. One thing my instructor was very fond of saying is like, if you drew it once, you can draw it again. And so it's been kind of instilled into me. So I'm not afraid to erase if I need to, and then I can come back in and readjust it. I'm a big advocate of a sharp knife cuts the deepest and hurts the least. And so basically that means instead of, you know, nickeling and diming it, pushing a line over incrementally, just, you know, put it in, erase the old one, and can move on, instead of like, you know, just slowly shifting it over and hoping for the best that that little bit's going to make the difference. Okay, so another 5-minute break?
Yes.
Okay. So another quick break, and then we'll finish this up. I'll do the wash of tone, and all that basically means is I'm going to do a wash of value across all the shadow shapes in one value. I'm not going to try to denote the hair. I'm not going to try to denote any reflected light, anything like that. It's just going to be a flat, basically think of a graphic pattern, okay? So you're going to have the light as the value of the paper, and you're going to have the wash of tone as the value of the shadows, okay? And local color. Because her hair is so dark, it's going to fall into the same value as the shadows. And what that's going to do is going to hopefully unify the entire piece into the beginning of turning form. And that's a whole nother, you know, kettle of fish to start to turn form, you know, with core shadow, reflected light, transitions, that type of thing, edge quality, that kind of stuff. So any questions? Mm-hmm.
Where do you start painting?
Where do I start painting? Good question. What I usually do when I start painting is I start more, when I do a portrait in drawing, I start from the inside out. Okay, as you notice, I start from basically here and I start to work out and get all the shapes where they need to be. I found with painting, I generally start a little bit more blocky and I start from the outside and kind of start to work my way in. But as I'm working my way in, I'll set that crosshair and start to work out again. But I'm usually setting the positioning of the head in relationship to the shoulders, okay? And then I'll go ahead and go in and then work my way back out. So I usually try to set the outside edges and then start to break it down, as opposed to starting specifically right here. So I'll get those outside edges as close as I can. The nice thing about paint, though, for the painters is it's a matter of pushing and pulling, okay? So if I get a line in the wrong spot, I may need to push it out. So I'll just take a brush and push that line out. If I get too far out, I take a brush and I'll push that line back in. It's not me because I turned off my buzzer. So, that gives me a little bit more latitude than in drawing, okay? Because when you're drawing, you can't really push and pull. You're having to move things, okay? And then erase what you don't want. You know, with paint, I can just like push one color into the other, and all of a sudden it's fixed. You know, either this way or that way. You know, up or down, that type of thing. So, hopefully that answers your question. So, okay. Anything else? Okay, so in a couple of minutes we'll go and do the wash of tune.
So we also have another way is doing charcoal drawing.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually
Okay.
So they basically also tone the whole thing,
Mhm.
then do some minus. So here is positive.
Right, exactly.
Overall is minus way.
So you're talking about reductive drawing, or wipeout reductive drawing. So,
So those are like the charcoal is a little bit stick.
yeah,
It's very thick.
yeah,
It's not as finer.
right.
So we were just doing the whole surface like
Mhm.
this, but it's exactly as you described. You don't do exactness. It's always just keep on adjusting.
Exactly. Yeah, adjusting. Yeah, that's
But it's more like on the pattern side instead of on the line side. So that's one class I actually
This like more of
we call it. It's called the Michael Lane or something.
Michael Lane. Yeah, yeah,
So that's
yeah,
one.
yeah.
That's my only portfolio.
That's more of like a painterly approach to drawing, because you're pushing and pulling large masses of charcoal. Yeah, exactly. So it's much more painterly, but it's a fun way to do it too. I do that in figure drawing. We'll do what's called a wipeout, and so we'll tone the entire paper, and then we'll come in and pull the lights out for the light that's hitting the figure. So yeah.
yeah, and the shadows aren't as dark. Before, when the light was on that side, your arm was really
Oh,
shadowy.
right. Keeping, yeah, that makes
And then
sense.
It's like you weren't in the picture, so I'm trying to get them to pull it out. So you're in the picture too.
Whatever you like to do.
Yeah. So when people at home are looking at it, you can see the artist. Yeah, and you're not just your hand.
Right.
Yeah. So. 'Cause
But I could be just a hand, so.
Okay, that looks good.
Good work.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yes.
Start anytime.
Okay. Okay. So, how?
Very lightly, so yeah.
Well,
easier to
it's
see up lightly.
exactly. Well, it's much easier to correct if it's light, so as opposed to going dark.
And not be messy. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, how much time is left?
I
Just.
think you can do another like 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, okay.
Make it shorter and then
Oh yeah.
try to
Yeah. So just tell me when to pull the plug. So, because what I'll do now is wash a tone. So. Sure.
These stumps, how do you clean the tip of it? Once you use it, it gets so dark.
Well, what I do as I'm working, I will take and I'll turn it into my thing here to pull off the loose stuff. Okay. And then generally that will work for quite some time. And then what I'll generally do is I'll take a piece of clean sandpaper and just sand it. Yeah, and that'll take off the charcoal. And sometimes these things will do what's called glazing. It'll get really, really hard and it won't want to do anything anymore. And so then you just sand it and it gives it a new surface. And
Oh, I see.
yeah,
I always wonder. Every
Yeah.
time I use it and then try to use it again,
it leaves it. Yeah, exactly. So I'm always doing this every time even if I take it out of here, if I take this out, before I set this on the paper, I'm going to be doing this first.
I see.
Yeah, to make sure that I don't have any.
I thought of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. So I don't do exactly what you're talking about. So.
Great.
Okay. Okay. You bet. Okay. So are we ready to get started again?
Yes, we're ready.
Okay. 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 So, okay, so this is the linear part of the drawing. So I'm going to move into the wash of tone, and this is where I'm going to be able to compare apples to apples. Okay. Let's see here. You're in the right spot.
the last session starts.
Okay. So now what I'm doing is I'm using I'm not using the side of the pencil, I'm using more of the tip of the pencil to put in what's referred to as a wash of tone. And I generally try to shoot for about a value 3 on a 9-step value scale, getting that wash of tone in. It has to be as even as possible. Okay, and so here I'm being very particular about how much pressure I'm putting on my pencil, and I'm going at an oblique angle to the weave of the paper, meaning I'm not going horizontally or vertically, because otherwise I start to accentuate the lines in the paper. And so this will minimize that as I'm putting down the wash of tone. You'll get some of it because of the weave, but you'll minimize it. It won't be as pronounced. So make sure that you're going at an oblique angle to it. Between 30 and 45 degrees roughly will generally do it. And here's also, as I'm moving out from some of the shadows are transitioning into the value of the paper. That's somebody who's talking behind me. I'm going to transition it into the value of the paper so that it has a little bit better quality instead of just a hard edge. It just makes it look a little bit more I don't want to say realistic, but it gives a better transition and not so harsh. Because although we're looking for a graphic pattern, we do want to still maintain some soft edges so that it still feels like a portrait. Okay, so here, on this side here is going to go all into a general mass, okay? I'm not going to stop for the side of the face. I'm not going to stop for the ear. All of that is in shadow. And so I'm always reminding my students that unless the light is hitting it directly, it's not in the lights, okay? So although you can see, I can see her ear, and I can see the value difference between her dark hair and her skin, it's not a concern right now. I'm looking for just those graphic patterns of darks and lights. I'll separate those values out later once I've got, you know, everything put down and I have my overall proportions and everything where I want them to be. Up here along the forehead, I'm going to soften that edge just a little bit so that it's not so hard, and then take out my my initial block-in line. So just using the tip of my kneaded eraser, just soften that line so it's not really there. It's going to be more of a transition between the wash and then the light of the paper. And then she has a little bit of light on that lower eyelid. I want to try to capture. Sometimes those smaller pieces are a little bit difficult at this stage to hang on to, just because it's a little bit too general still. But as the drawing progresses, then I could get into it. Once I stump this, I don't ever, well, I don't want to say ever, but I rarely use fixative on any of my charcoal drawings. The charcoal drawing that's in the frame over there wasn't fixed. And most of the drawings that I have that aren't even behind glass haven't been fixed, because I find it kills the shadows. It just completely obliterates them. And so once you stump a drawing, it will stay pretty stable. And so you don't really have to fight with it too much after that. You still want to protect it and take care of it, obviously, but it's not going to be a super, it's not going to be super fugitive, or, if that's the right word. It's going to be pretty set into the paper, so. Just getting the part between the lips, kind of getting that established. She's got a beautiful little cast shadow on the lower lip here, coming down into the shadow underneath the lower lip, and that's going to transition into the shadow along the side of the face. That's going to come down into the chin, underneath along the neck, and then just transition back ever so slightly for the jawline there. That light has shifted just a little bit. I'm going to push that out just a little bit. So I need to erase that line just a little bit. So just like I did with the linear portion, I'm always adjusting at this, even at this stage, I'm adjusting my values. So not my values, but my shapes, because they're always shifting a little bit. Looks like I need to raise this one eye just a little bit. They don't quite match, and so I'm going to add a little bit more mass. So this is where I can start to compare large masses of value instead of just a linear line. I can look at it and say, okay, does that mass match what I'm seeing on the model?
So, Aaron, you have 1 to 5 minutes to wrap up. It's up to you.
I have what again?
The 1 hour session is 1 minute away.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
You can use a little bit more time.
It's really, I mean, basically, this is kind of like watching grass grow or paint dry. It's because, I mean, I'm just basically filling in. And so, I could do this actually without the model, because I have enough down that I know where things are falling. So I can go ahead, and if people want to come up and get a little closer view of what I'm doing here and ask any questions, I'm more than happy to do that, and then go from there. Whatever you guys would like. So you tell me. Do we want to?
Time is up.
Okay.
And everyone's welcome to just to go getting closer, asking questions, looking details.
So are you doing these strokes a little more firm, or are you using a different medium?
No, it's still the HB charcoal, but I'm more on the tip of the charcoal here. People think I'm doing it along this, like the way I sharpen my pencil. I sharpen it like this with a very sharp tip like that,
Yeah.
and people think I'm doing that edge. I'm not.
Okay.
Okay. I'm more up on this point right here as I'm setting that wash of tone, and so it looks like I'm on the side, but I'm really not. And it's a very light touch, because if I push hard, I'm going to get a very dark line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got to keep it very, very light.
You said something about a wash, and I keep thinking, okay, I freeze water, where's the water?
Oh no, this is the wash.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so basically I'm coming in and putting in.
It's more like you now. From a distance.
It looks like what?
Oh, from a distance at the beginning, we didn't look like her. Now she does.
Yeah, and actually I would come in and I would actually even out this value a little bit more. These darker points in here and whatnot, I would actually want to ease those over before I start to do a wash or start to stump it. I can show you what I mean by darkening. If I start to stump this, let's see, here we go.
Have the best for the last.
So if I start to stump this, you can see the value that it is now, but if I start to stump it, you can start to see how it's starting to darken.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's what it is.
And so you've got to keep that initial value very light. Otherwise, what happens is you're going to go super, super dark. If I stump this,
Yeah.
it's really dark.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's a matter of keeping a very light touch and then also keeping it nice and even. Now, generally before I start stumping, I would have taken out this line and this line, you know, eased over some of these edges like here because those are still too dark. A stump isn't going to erase them. It's just going to darken them. It's just going to make it darker. So you want this as even as possible.
Are you still using the HB pencil?
What's that again?
Are you still using the HB pencil?
Yeah, yeah. I use an HB pencil for the majority of most of my drawings, just because that charcoal is much more versatile than graphite, and so I can do all of that with just a single pencil, and then towards the end I might grab like a 2B if I really wanted to get some darks in her hair here or over here. Then I'll jump to a darker, a softer 2B or 4B. But yeah, but for most of the drawing, you're going to see me do it like in an HB.
So if you would carry this on to finishing, you'd be talking like, what'd you say, 60 or 70 hours? Or
More like probably 16 to 20.
60?
Yeah, for something that